Hello, this is Paulo coming back with the third episode of my podcast, Your Universal Friend. On this episode, I would like to talk about a very important subject, which is the positive attitude that we should try to adopt on a daily basis in order to facilitate our path of spiritual or personal growth. But before talking about what a positive attitude is, I would like to remind us, I include myself, that no human is perfect. Indeed, even if we start a spiritual journey, we must understand that it is impossible for us as humans living in this chaotic world to be perfect. So we shouldn't be putting so much pressure on ourselves to become in a record time some kind of perfect person. We are humans, so it is normal to experience negative emotions as a natural reaction to difficult situations. We feel sad when we are rejected. We feel devastated when we lose someone. We feel angry when we fail. We feel afraid when someone attacks us. We feel frustrated when we notice that the world situation doesn't get better. These negative emotions are at some point normal reactions that we experience as humans, and thus we shouldn't feel bad or guilty for that, since guilt is itself a negative emotion and thus it only worsens the situation. However, we should ask ourselves what we are doing with these negative emotions. Are we letting them taking control over our bodies, decisions and actions, or are we controlling them to prevent them from hurting us? As you may imagine, a person that wants to evolve spiritually should be constantly trying to control his or her negative emotions. But how can we develop emotional self-control? The first step is to identify our own negative emotions as soon as they come up. This awareness will allow us to make a conscious decision on what to do with these emotions, being obviously the correct decision to block them and to prevent them from developing. Next, we should try to transmute them into a positive attitude. In other words, we should try to respond to these negative emotions by being optimistic, loving, patient, constructive, confident. So, becoming a positive person is indeed a very important step when following a path of personal and spiritual growth. Remember that when we go through a difficult situation, we have two options. The first option is to be negative, that is, to get angry and even aggressive, to be frustrated, to complain, to depress, or even to revenge. The second option is to be positive. And what is that? It is simply to accept and even embrace the situation we're going through. It is to understand that even though things may not be under our control, they are still able to provide empowering perspectives. It is to be optimistic and to see the good in life no matter what. It is to realize that we have something to learn out of this situation. It is to understand that we are capable of solving the problems that make us unhappy. And it is to give our best to overcome this situation and to find a solution to our problems. If you're used to be a very negative person, all this may sound crazy to you. It is indeed very complicated at the beginning to see the good side or to see an opportunity of growth out of a difficult situation, but it is not impossible. So, when you face a problem, don't judge the problem. Don't conclude that this is unfair to you. Don't get angry. Don't curse. Don't insult. Just calm down and accept the situation. That is the first step, accepting. Because getting angry, or yelling, or crying, or getting depressed is not going to change anything. So breathe deeply and slowly and calm down and tell yourself that you have a lesson to learn out of this that will allow you to be a happier person in the future. So a difficult situation is not a punishment. Nobody is punishing you. Try rather to see it as an opportunity to learn a new lesson to access happier moments in the future. So, after accepting the situation and calming down, meditate and reflect on how you could solve this problem. Remain optimistic, and even if it's a huge problem you're facing, trust the universe and have faith that things will go well. Remember that faith is not hoping. Faith is being convinced. Hope is a positive feeling because it is a way to remain optimistic. So being hopeful is a good attitude regarding all the things that are out of our control. However, hope is not enough for us to change our lives. Hope, in a way, is waiting for things to arrive and to change. Hoping is waiting for someone up there to be in a good mood to give us what we need. So even if it's good to be hopeful, we have to understand that if we do not take action, nothing will change in our lives. And we should take action being convinced that we can change our lives because we are indeed capable of. So let's have faith. Let's be convinced that we will be able to overcome the difficult situations we're going through because, first of all, we are willing to work hard to find a solution. And second, we are convinced that we deserve health, peace, love, abundance, and happiness. Now, you may be asking yourself, what is really the interest of being convinced that things will go well? What is the interest of having faith? Well, let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard of the law of attraction? If you haven't, let me explain it to you very quickly. The law of attraction is a universal law that allows people to simply attract what they focus their attention on. If you focus your attention on negative things, you will attract negative things to your life. However, if you focus your attention on positive things, you will end up attracting positive things. It's simple as that. So, if you face a problem and you decide to be negative, that is, to focus your attention on your anger, on your sadness, on your unhappiness, on your frustration, or even on your desire of revenge, you will end up attracting more negative things to your life. So the universe is not punishing you. God is not punishing you. Nobody is punishing you. This is simply the result of you focusing on negative ideas and negative actions. However, if you decide to have a positive attitude, that is, to accept the situation, to work hard to solve it, and to be convinced that you are capable of solving it, then you will be able to attract to your life people or opportunities that will help you solve your problems. So this is why it is so important to have a positive attitude and to have faith when we go through difficult situations. Otherwise, if we decide to be negative and pessimistic, it is going to be almost impossible for us to overcome such problems. Another important quality for us to remain positive is gratitude. Let's try to become aware of all the gifts that we have been given for which we should be more than grateful. This may sound a little cliché, but let's become aware of how lucky we are for having a healthy body, for having our beloved ones, our families, our friends, for having our houses, for having food, for having the nature that surrounds us, and for having as well our more or less peaceful environment. Realize that there are millions of people out there who don't have any of these things. So let's be grateful for all that we have, and let's stop blaming people and complaining about superficial and unimportant things such as not being able to buy a ridiculously expensive item, or for not having the perfect body, or for not being rich or powerful. Now, be careful, I'm not saying here that we shouldn't desire to have a beautiful, healthy body or a good economic situation. We have the right or even the obligation to desire health and abundance for our lives. But before desiring more, we should start by being grateful for what we already have. Notice that if we are not grateful for what we have and we complain every day for what we don't have, we will be focusing our attention on the feeling of lack and misery. Lack, L-A-C-K. And thus we will end up attracting more lack and more misery to our lives. It is a vicious circle. So let's be grateful for what we already have. Let's also work hard to get what we wish to have. And let's also be grateful for our future success. Being grateful for our future success is actually a way to use the law of attraction to visualize and materialize our dreams and desires by focusing our attention on them. So project your mind on the happiness you will feel when you will have accomplished your most precious dreams and thank the universe for such fulfillment. This is a way to show yourself and to show the universe that you have faith and that you are convinced that everything is possible. And so you will attract to your life all that you dream of. Obviously, as long as your dream is something that's good for you and for your environment. Now, what happens when we're actually lacking one of these elements mentioned before? How can we be grateful when we are lacking health, food, a house, love, or peace? Well, first we need to understand that there may be two different reasons for us to be lacking any of these elements. The first reason why we might be lacking health, love, or money is simply our own actions. For example, sometimes when we lack health, it may be the result of our own bad habits such as eating unhealthy food, having a sedentary life, or consuming drugs. Our body is paying for the decision we made, which is simply the decision of not taking care of our own body. In this case, we are responsible for our own suffering. We must understand that our suffering is not a punishment. Our suffering is rather a warning sign or a red flag that helps us realize that we are taking the wrong path. So we should be grateful for having this suffering as a sign to be able to change our path and make better decisions before it is too late. Being grateful in these conditions show how mature and how resilient we are. This gratitude allows us to stay positive and optimistic. We will then make better decisions, and thus we will end up attracting more good things to our lives. The second reason why we might be lacking health, love, or money, just to mention a few, is that we have a lesson to learn. For example, being born in a very poor family may allow us to learn the value of money and work. Being poor forces us, in some way, to fight for our dreams, to learn to be strong, determined human beings. In this case, I believe we should be grateful for such obstacles because they help us grow and become a stronger and better version of ourselves. If you pay attention, some of the most admiring and resilient people in this world are precisely people who have gone through very difficult situations and who have learned to be resilient and thus to be grateful because it is thanks to these obstacles that they have become who they are now. So, as you can see, there is no reason not to be grateful. Gratitude is an obligatory quality to develop when we have decided to take the path of personal and spiritual growth. Remember that we will always find obstacles on our paths. Remember as well that humans are not perfect. We are allowed to experience negative emotions, but it is our responsibility to control them and to remain positive and grateful in order to find balance and to attract wonderful surprises to our lives. Thank you so much for your attention and your time. If you like my content, please share with your close ones. This is Paulo, your universal friend.